Hey everybody, it's Scott Steen with winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with a very special edition of Today in Sports Betting. It's a blast from the past, Scott. We're going to take a look at UFC. It is UFC 257 from over there in what is it, Abu Dhabi?
Yes.
I just like saying that. But it's weird. It's the weird Abu Dhabi fight. They basically are going to make believe there's no time difference. So this is going to start 5 in the morning local time.
Give or
About,
take.
about 8 hours difference.
Yeah, give or take.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Mhm.
And of course, the big headline bout in this one is Conor McGregor going up against Poirier, right? Poirier.
Yeah, Dustin Poirier.
So we'll get to that. That'd be a short show if we started with that fight. We got to suck you in. We got to get rid of just like the regular fight card. We got to do all the prelims first. So let's start, Scott, with the first bout on the early prelim card. This is Amir Albazi against Zalgas Zamagalev.
Look at you.
Is that right?
Look at you. Yeah, it sounded pretty good to me.
All right. By the way, the over under on me mispronouncing names is 3.5. You've accused me of doing research behind it, and that is not true. I did watch. I
Wasn't accusing. I saw you going through it while we were still on our Zoom chat yesterday, but teach their own.
So the rules is I do all these cold. I don't go to YouTube. I don't find out. I don't seek out pronunciations. I give these my best shot on my first try. So I'm 1-0 right now. I'm pretty excited about that. Zamagalev is 113 minus 113 small favorite. The over under in this one is 2.5. Seriously juiced to the over. Scott, you got anything here?
Truth is no. I
Okay.
think this fight's actually very, very even. I think this is going to be one of those fights that a lot of people might not pay attention to, but I think this fight should be very close throughout. It's a conflict of styles. You have the Kazakhstanian, whose name you beautifully pronounced, who is more of a stand-up guy, who kind of showcases his ability to use range to his advantage, to keep distance. He's going up against Albazi, who is mostly a submission guy. So I think that it's kind of a conflict of styles there. I think it's pretty even. I think this fight should probably be a pretty long one, so I'd lean to the over. But for the most part, no, I'm just going to kick back and enjoy this one.
All right, very good. Of course, the overs, you're paying minus 245 for it. I'm assuming you don't want to get involved in that.
No, but I think that if you think this fight's going to go the distance, I think you have a decent chance going with Zumagulov by decision if you wanted to go for a little bit of extra value, since he does have 6 decision wins in his career.
Okay. All right, very good. Next up on our early prelim card is Nick Lentz against Movsar Ovlev.
Okay, it's Evloev, but close enough.
Ah, dang it. Evlev? Really? Evlev?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, he's a big favorite here, Scott, minus 600. If you wanted to bid on the easy to pronounce Nick Lentz, plus 425. But they do expect this one to go over. The over is juiced to 2.5, minus 280. So tell me why Movsar is going to dominate this fight.
Well, I would, except for the fact that I have this in a parlay, so we can potentially either circle back to it or I can give you my thoughts on this matchup anyway. I think I'll just go with the thoughts now, and I'll say what the second leg is of that parlay anyway. But Evloev is currently 13-0. Been a very solid fighter. There's a reason why him to win this fight by decision. You know that I'm a big outcome guy. Him to win by decision is roughly minus 140, minus 150. So people just expect him to win by decision. Can't really argue with that. If you're 13-0 and 6 of those wins have come by decision, you tend to like to pick people apart and then simply just win on the judges' scorecards. And I think he'll do the same in this one. The issue with Lentz here is the fact that, don't get me wrong, he is a decently well-rounded fighter, I should say, because he has won 30 times, 11 by knockout, 8 by submission, 11 by decision. But he has gone to decision 17 times in his career. So he's not afraid of being in these long fights as well. He's lost each of his last 2 and now going up against an undefeated guy. I just think Evloev's going to take care of business. But for the sake of this fight, I'm actually not going to be taking a side. I'll be taking the fight to go the distance in a parlay, which I'm trying to remember the line that I had available. I have the parlay lines. I believe it was minus 200 on FanDuel. I think this fight's going to be a pretty long one, and I think that Evloev will eventually win by decision. But for the sake of this fight, I'll take fight to go the distance.
All right, very good. Now, Scott, I've got a fight listed here at Bet Online that I don't see on the UFC site.
Okay, hit me with it.
That is Andrew Sanchez and Mahmoud Muradov.
I see that.
I do not see it's not on the UFC fight on the UFC site. So I can add nothing here. Sanchez is a underdog plus 121. Muradov is minus 141. 2.5, of course, is the number. Once again, juiced, but just slightly to the over at minus 155. Tell me about this fight, Scott. Tell me why it's not on the UFC site.
It's an excellent question. I'm not really sure why it's not on the UFC fight because I'm looking through information and I don't see any signs it's been canceled.
Okay.
So,
like I said, it's you'd think it would still be on the UFC site, but there wouldn't be a line on it if it had been canceled. So,
I guess. I know that the weigh-ins today, I didn't hear anything about this fight. But looking at the actual matchup here.
They have it listed on the main card for some reason.
Okay, so it is there.
So this is Andrew Sanchez. His nickname is El Dirte.
Mm-hmm.
And Mahmoud, his nickname is Mock. So
okay.
Not nearly as exciting, but
no.
Of course, Sanchez from the United States, Muradov from Tajikistan. A lot of Eastern European ex-Russian satellite. This is big business over there, isn't it?
Well, yes, and it's also in Abu Dhabi, so you have a decent amount of these fighters from, I'd say, I don't want to say locally, but I'd say somewhat in close proximity.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
There seems to be a decent amount of those fighters geographically on these cards, which
looks
is
like a couple of guys that lean heavily on the knockout, Scott.
Definitely true. Now,
Muradov, might be a good place to pounce on our first under.
I think that it definitely makes a lot of sense if you want to. Am I going to play anything in this fight? Not really. But I do know that Sanchez, even though he has 6 wins by knockout, has a little bit of a weak chin. He has lost 3 times by knockout. So if you do think that he might, if you think it's going to be a rock'em sock'em robot kind of fight where both fighters are just going to be swinging in the pocket, I think you might find some value with Muradov by knockout. Since Muradov has only lost once by knockout. He's lost 3 times by submission, so his ground game isn't that great. But Sanchez doesn't exactly bring much to the table in that aspect. I think Muradov has some value as an underdog. Am I going to play anything on it? No. But I do think if you wanted to find some value, Muradov by knockout might be worth a sprinkle.
Okay. All right, very good. All right, so now we're back to the early prelim card, light heavyweight bout between Khalil Roundtree Jr. Yeah, you got to love those. And Marcin Prachnio.
I'll give it to you.
Okay, fair enough. Close enough there. Prachnio is, of course, from Poland against Roundtree from the United States. Pretty good size here for these light heavyweights. And again, a couple of knockout specialists. Roundtree big favorite here, minus 325. And the over-under, Scott, for the first time reflects the styles of these fighters. It has been set at 1.5 and juiced to the under at minus 175. So the odds makers and the stats would seem to think this is going to be a furious, as you would call it, a rock'em sock'em robots fight here. Anything differently than how I have this figured out?
Well, this is the second leg of my parlay. That I mentioned earlier. So I have Evloev fight to go the distance, and I also have Roundtree money line. I'll play it a little bit safer. Do I think Roundtree will win by knockout? Yes. But for the sake of this parlay, it pays out a minus 109 on FanDuel. I'm not going to get too greedy with it. Roundtree has been knocked out in 2 of his last 3 fights, which is a little bit concerning. But if you look at who he's going up against in Johnny Walker and Cutelaba, both those guys possess a lot of power in the stand-up, and I do think that it makes sense that Roundtree got knocked out in those fights. But the issue I have here with Prachnio is the fact that he's just been terrible over the last couple of fights that he's been in. He's 0-3 in his last 3, and he hasn't been knocked out to really good fighters. Uncle, Unkelov. I'm trying to remember how to pronounce that.
What's your over-under?
But either way, I know him as a fighter. He's pretty good. But you look at who else he's gone up against. He's gone up against the likes of Sam Alvey, who is well past his prime, got knocked out there in the first round. Went up against Mike Rodriguez. He got knocked out there. Each of his UFC fights in his career have ended in a first-round knockout loss. And Roundtree has faced the better competition. And I simply think Roundtree has too much power for Prachnio. So I think Prachnio should end up unconscious probably in about the first 3 minutes of this fight. So I think if you want to go for a value play, look for Roundtree knockout first round. Yeah. I think it's worth a shot there. But the issue I have is that with this matchup for Prachnio is the fact that if he's getting knocked out by the likes of Alvey and Mike Rodriguez, I think Roundtree has more power than both those guys. So I think it could be a pretty short, but a very, very nice resting period for Prachnio on the card.
Let me ask you why you decided not to play Roundtree in a knockout there.
For the most part, you could if you want to play it separately. I just decided to do the money line for the sake of the parlay, just since it was I already had Evloev. I kind of just wanted to play it safe on the money line.
Okay.
Plus, Roundtree occasionally isn't as aggressive as you probably want him to be in some of these fights. He's not afraid to trade in the pocket, but he also has 3 decision wins, and Prachnio does have a decent amount of power. So there are some opportunities for Roundtree to showcase a little bit of wrestling, to try to potentially just tire Prachnio out because Prachnio is not really used to getting out of the first round. So there could be multiple approaches for Roundtree to win. I think I'll knock him out. But if I told you that this guy Prachnio has barely been out of the first round his entire career, I think you'd agree that cardio is probably a problem for this guy. So it would not surprise me to see Roundtree maybe take his time and let Prachnio tire himself out. I think he'll win by knockout anyway, but that's kind of my logic there.
All right, fair enough. Okay, and now we get the first fight between the ladies as Juliana Pena goes up against Sarah McMahon. Juliana Pena's nickname, Scott, what is it?
Truth is, I kind of forgot.
She is the Venezuelan Vixen.
That's right, which is actually a very good nickname.
And, of course, she comes from where?
Venezuela.
The United States. Thank you very much. So it's not quite as good a nickname as you might anticipate, but
it's all about heritage.
It probably has more catch than like the Vermont Vixen or whatever. So as far as the odds go for this one, fairly even. McMahon's small favorite there at minus 133. 2.5 is your number, as you might expect in the women's division. It is juiced to the over at minus 225. Looks like the number 7 contender squaring off against the number 9 contender in McMahon, Scott. Who do you got here?
So I don't actually have an official play on this, but I actually think the wrong person's favored here.
Okay.
I would lean to Pena. McMahon has been pretty good over the course of her career, but the issue now is the fact that she's 40 years old. She has lost 2 of her last 3 fights against some pretty good competition, but both of those losses came by submission. So she has a little bit of a weakness on the ground, and I think that Pena can exploit that. Pena's a very, very even fighter. 3 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission, 3 wins by decision. Now, she has also lost 2 out of 3, but you look at who she's gone up against. She lost to Durandamy, and she lost to Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko is the second best female fighter on the planet right now, or arguably third if you want to talk about Cyborg, who's no longer with the UFC. And Durandamy is the number 1 contender in the weight class. So I'll give Pena a bit of a pass there. I think that Pena has gone up against the better competition lately in those 2 losses, and she's also 9 years younger. So I think there's a chance that McMahon, who used to be very solid, might be a little bit past her prime, and I think the odds don't correctly reflect that.
Now, do you think this goes over, or do you think there's any way that she submits her?
I'll tell you what, I think that it probably will go over. I know that, as you know, I've mentioned a lot that for women's fights, you tend to bet the over and usually win. It would not surprise me to see Pena potentially pull out a submission. So I think that if you wanted to go for extreme value, you could take a shot with it.
Yeah, you could take – that's what I was wondering. You could take Pena in the under, getting good prices on both of those.
Well, just to look at the actual lines that I could find for exact outcomes there.
I'm going to guess right now. I'm going to guess I'm going to pay plus 420.
Sorry, just bear with me for a second. I see 6-1
Oh, wow.
on
Even
Fox
better.
Bet, which I think is definitely worth a sprinkle if you wanted to go there.
Yep.
Now, does Pena have the same ground ability as some of the other people that McMahon recently lost to by submission? No. But the fact that she has showcased a weakness there means that Pena might try to exploit that. So it would not surprise me to see her get a takedown or two and maybe work in a submission attempt or so. But at 6-1, if you get at least one submission attempt, I consider that money well spent. I'm assuming you'd agree with that.
Yeah. I think that's a good spin right there for sure. That's something that I actually might play in real life.
Well, we'll see how that goes for you.
Okay. Next up, Scott, it is a.
By the way, sorry to interrupt, but you asked me about Roundtree. Why I didn't play him by knockout. Main reason why him by knockout was minus 175.
Okay.
Wasn't exactly interested in that.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, if you got a guy that you've got to win and he wins every fight by knockout, I just don't understand the.
I just don't like laying 175 with the exact outcomes.
Okay, well, since instead you're laying minus 325 in a parlay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just saying.
All right. Well, that's I can't expect to understand all your UFC wizardry here. So
We'll see what happens. Watch if Roundtree wins by decision somehow, then we'll keep that in mind.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll definitely circle back to that if Roundtree wins by decision. You can dance all day long on that one.
Mm-hmm.
How about Antonio Carlos Jr. and Brad Tavares? Close again. What looks like a pretty good match on paper. Tavares small favorite minus 120. The over 2.5 is juiced at minus 185. And Antonio Carlos Jr.'s nickname is Cara de Zapato. Any idea what that means?
I took Spanish for 5 years. No idea.
Cara is hands. Is that right? Hands of.
That sounds right. Did Hands of Stone?
Well, you would think so.
Even though that nickname's already been kind of trademarked in boxing culture.
By every tight end to play for the Chiefs before Tony Gonzalez.
That wasn't exactly what I was going for, but I was thinking more Roberto Duran, but that too.
Who you like here while I look it
up? So in this one, I'll actually be going with a. Did it say shoes?
That's Zapato. That's with a Z.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, for the sake of this fight, while you continue looking that up, for the sake of this fight, I personally think that, by the way, it could be Portuguese, so it might not actually be Spanish. But
yeah, I think that's going to be the case because, well, yeah, it's probably not Wicker Basket.
Yeah, that would be a hell of a nickname. Hands of a wicker basket. That would be a hell of a nickname. But for this one, I'll actually be siding with him. I was looking through the line movement in all the fights, and Tavares opened up at around minus 150, down to around minus 120, which means Carlos Jr. has gone from plus 120 to plus 100. And the truth is, I think he actually matches up very well with Brad Tavares. Now, Tavares doesn't exactly have much ground game expertise. Doesn't really have any belts that I know about. Meanwhile, Carlos Jr. is a black belt. He was competing in BJJ competitions in Brazil. I believe he even won a couple gold medals in the World Championship. So he's a well-regarded ground guy. And the issue I have with Tavares is that he has been a little bit weak to takedown defense in his career against pretty solid ground guys. And Carlos Jr. has recorded at least one takedown successfully in each of his last 8 fights. And the reason why I bring that up is because of the fact that since Carlos Jr. does have submission expertise, and the fact that he's been a takedown machine, and the fact that Tavares doesn't have much takedown defense, you can get Carlos Jr. by submission at 4-1 on Fox Bet.
Oh, I like that.
I'll take it. For value play, sure.
82% of his wins have come by way of submission, Scott.
Yep.
That to me is that's a green flag right there, my friend.
Now, I think Tavares is a decent fighter, but once again, it's more of just a conflict of styles here. And Tavares has been, well, he's been kind of showcasing a weak chin in his last couple of fights, but he has gone up against some really good competition. But you look at who he's actually gone up against that can wrestle, He went up against, in the Ultimate Fighter finale, Elias Theodoro. And Theodoro ended up losing that fight, but he did record multiple takedowns in that fight, and he's a little bit of a wrestler.
Right.
So I do think that since Tavares has shown a weakness to stuffing takedowns, all it takes is one for Carlos Jr. to give you a serious shot at this.
Right.
I think 4-1 is definitely worth it.
Wrong fighter favorite here, Scott?
I wouldn't go that far because Tavares definitely has had more success in the UFC, so I can understand why Tavares is favored. But I do think that 4-1 for a submission expert against a guy with average at best submission and takedown defense, I think is a little bit concerning. So for that reason, I'll take the value play at 4-1.
All right. Moving on, and I know this is a bout that actually a few people have been talking about. Scott is Armin Sarukian goes against Matt Frivola. I don't know if it counts against me if I can't pronounce his nickname. Do you know what Sarukian's nickname is, Scott?
I actually did, but I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on this one.
Ahal Kalakuts is apparently what his nickname is.
Fun.
I have no idea what that means. And now wait a minute. I've got Scott. Wait a minute here.
There were a couple of fight cancellations, so if you see a different matchup listed, there's a couple reasons why.
Yeah, I've got Frivola listed on the main page, but when you click on the bout, it actually has Nasrat Hakparast.
Yeah, so just to actually break that down, Sarukian ended up dropping out yesterday. He's not on the card. And you were supposed to have Frivola fighting against Azatar, sorry. And Azatar, unfortunately, ended up violating COVID protocols this morning, and not only was thrown off of the card, he was cut from the UFC.
No.
So he is not there anymore. He's undefeated. He was undefeated. I actually had a play on him to win by knockout. But now, since he violated COVID protocols, he has been thrown out of the organization. So they decided, since both fighters, or two fighters, ended up not being able to participate, why not take the opponents and have them fight each other? So I don't see any lines up at this moment for those two guys, but it seems like they just merged both fights, and kind of created another one to save at least one fight on the card.
All right, because Bet Online still has Sarukian up against Frivola.
Yeah, so that doesn't exist.
Okay. All right, moving on.
By the way, just for the record, in this new contest, I would take Nasrat. But I think there's a little bit of value there on Nasrat by knockout. I know that there are no lines available, so you have to stay tuned for that. But Frivola has had a pretty weak chin. It has been a little bit of an issue for him in his UFC career, where Nasrat is more of a knockout, I don't want to say specialist, but there's definitely his preferred method of victory. And it wouldn't surprise me to see Nasrat connect early, especially since Frivola had basically no time to prepare for this guy. I think it could be a potentially quick stoppage for Nasrat to get the job done. So for me, I think Nasrat will win by knockout.
So let me be that guy and ask you how you know there's good value on it before you know there's what the lines are.
Well, I didn't officially say there was going to be good value on it, but
I believe you did.
Well, I'm saying I think that there's potential for good value on it.
Okay. All right. Good enough. You like it how when I say I don't want to be that guy, and then I'm that guy immediately after.
Oh, it's like no offense, but you know you're going to say something offensive.
Exactly right. All right, Scott. So now we're moving on to the main card. Pretty good fight here against a couple of fighters with good records. Top 10 matchup between Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Ribas. Both of them from Brazil. Both of them with just one loss in the UFC. So cap this one for me, buddy. It looks like
Ribas is a pretty big favorite in this one.
Yeah, Ribas is a minus 307. And, of course, once again, over 2.5, minus 227. Not as prohibitive as some of the ladies' fights. So any reason to hope here if you're a Rodriguez backer?
Well, I think that the one argument you have for...
He actually is the higher-rated fighter, by the way.
Well, yeah, but Ribas is an up-and-comer who's supposed to be a title contender within the next, 2 years. So there's a reason why Ribas has a lot of hype behind her. Why she's a big favorite in this spot. Marina, I think, is fine. Don't get me wrong. I think she's an okay fighter.
But the issue you have is that her last 2 fights ended in a draw and a loss. And losing to Carla Esparza, Carla Esparza is a good fighter. She's not as good as Amanda Ribas. And if you're struggling to beat Esparza, I think you're going to have some problems against Ribas. I think if you wanted to maybe go for a really, really bold play, you consider taking Ribas inside the distance, which you can probably find at a plus price.
Oh,
But for this one, I got to lean to Ribas because I don't think she's good enough to actually win the belt at any point, at least with who's holding the belt right now. But I think she's good enough to get a shot in the octagon for a title. And I think this is mostly a stepping stone fight for her. So I think that Ribas will win. I think she could win by submission, could win by knockout, could win by decision. But I'll lean Ribas. I think she'll win. I feel pretty confident she's going to win. But it wouldn't surprise me if it goes to the distance. So I'm not really giving you much information there. But I think Ribas will get the job done. I don't see much value there with the underdog.
Okay. 2 ladies in a row here as Jessica Eye goes up against Joanne Calderwood.
Decent amount of juice to the over on this one.
Jessica Eye's nickname, Scott?
So Jessica Eye's nickname is actually a pretty decent one. It is just simply Evil.
Not bad. Jessica Evil Eye. Not bad at all. And Joanne Calderwood, I think she just wrote something down when they asked for her nickname. Her nickname is what, Scott?
So Calderwood's nickname is JoJo.
JoJo, yeah, not impressive. Calderwood is the small favorite here, minus 120. Once again, juiced heavily to the over on the rounds at over 2.5 is minus 350. Scott, is this one any chance of this one going inside the distance? Neither one of these ladies with a lot of knockout power. Jessica Eye's gone to the card 73% of the time.
Yeah, just to interrupt your question there.
Sure, why not?
No. Eye is a decision master. Goes to decision in 17 of her career 23 fights.
Right.
I'm not going to try to expect a stoppage here. I think this will go the distance. Having said that, I do think that there might be some value here on Eye by decision. I'm not going to take it, but I think there's some value there. Just looking at who both these fighters have gone up against, Eye's been the headliner in a main event before. She lost, but at least she has gone 5 rounds before. She's gone up against pretty stellar competition. The issue you have with Calderwood is that even though she is definitely a pretty solid fighter, she hasn't exactly had any really impressive wins in these step-up fights that she's had. Lost to Jennifer Maia, lost to Chikagian, lost to Calvillo. I lost to Calvillo also, but she fought against Calvillo in her last fight in 5 rounds. Calderwood lost in 3. And she lost to Andrade, who was a title holder for a little while by first-round submission, which is kind of surprising. But she doesn't really have many impressive wins, Calderwood. And I think that's concerning because I do think that I don't know if she's a gatekeeper, but I definitely think that she's a little bit better than Calderwood in terms of talent. You look at Eye's last couple of fights, lost to Calvillo, who is very good, ended up beating both fighters, ended up losing to Shevchenko. I think Shevchenko is one of the best women's fighters of all time. But she also fought against Chikagian, and she beat Chikagian, unlike Calderwood. I just think Eye's better, and I think this fight will be close. I think it'll be a nail-biter. But for me, I'll lean to Eye by decision.
All right, very good.
Which I believe was plus 175 on Fox Bet.
What's a gatekeeper, Scott?
So a gatekeeper is somebody who kind of separates the real contenders from the pretenders. It's somebody who's been around in the UFC for a long time, who has the ability to beat these fighters who are trying to make the next step in their careers but aren't exactly good enough to do so. But if you are able to actually beat this person, it's kind of a sign to the rest of the division that you should be taken seriously.
All right, very good.
If that makes sense.
It does. It does. Just kind of wanted you to explain it for all our viewers out there.
I think that people might think I'm harsh for calling Eye a gatekeeper, but at 34 years old, she's not winning a title. So I'm going to call her a gatekeeper.
All right, Scott. Now it's a co-headline event here. And I know you, for one, are pretty excited about this fight. It is the matchup between Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler. Dan Hooker's nickname is, Scott?
So Dan Hooker is, well, he's definitely an interesting character. And I feel like the nickname kind of, gives that away a little bit. But he is the Hangman Hooker.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty good nickname, honestly.
I believe if my name was Dan Hooker, my nickname would be Your Momza. But
that works too. But I feel like if you ever become a UFC fighter, you can keep that in your back pocket.
yeah, that's I think that's got, along with playing in the NBA, probably one of those dreams I'm going to have to let go.
Well, I feel like if you would have ever had that dream, it was before the UFC was really popular.
Yeah, very
So,
good. And Michael Chandler, nickname is Iron Mike Chandler. Yeah,
nobody's ever thought of that one before.
not buying that. Scott, there's a pretty good disparity as far as height and reach goes. Hooker's 6 foot tall, Chandler's 5'8", and that does translate to a 3.5 inch advantage in reach and a 5-inch advantage in leg reach. As far as the odds go for this one, Hooker is small favorite, minus 135. And this is one of the closest ones we're going to see as far as the over-under, Scott. Over-under 2.5 is juiced just slightly to the over at minus 120. So I know you got an opinion on this. What you got?
So just to give you a brief breakdown on those odds, you have had a lot of money coming in on Chandler over the past week. Hooker was originally a minus 175, currently down to around minus 140. Chandler went from plus 139 to around plus 120. There has been a pretty steady influx of Chandler money. Truth is, I think Chandler is going to win the fight. But for the sake of the official play, I'm going to take the over. I like the over 2.5 rounds at minus 112 on FanDuel. I know you said it was available at minus 120. I found it at minus 112.
Okay.
Simply put, Hooker might be a very, very tough guy, but he's also an extremely cocky guy. And occasionally that comes back to bite him because he is not afraid to stand in the pocket and trade at will, which is pretty unnecessary because he takes a beating when he probably doesn't need to, which definitely does not fully bode well against some of these guys. Now, Chandler has been a knockout specialist in his career in Bellator, as he was the former champion in that respective organization. But looking at Chandler, I just think Chandler's a better well-rounded fighter. I just think that Chandler brings in a wrestling dimension that I don't think Hooker has. I think Chandler has a much higher fight IQ. I just talked about how Hooker likes to trade violently for no reason. I think Chandler will be smart about it. I know that the reach disadvantage is an issue, but I do think Chandler will throw in some wrestling in there to try to keep Hooker off guard. For me, I think this goes the distance because you have two really, really tough guys, and you look at Hooker, who is pretty much a knockout preferred guy. He has a couple submission wins earlier in his career, but he's mostly become a full-on stand-up guy. And Chandler has only been knocked out 3 times in his career, and he has not been knocked out in each of his last – well, he's been knocked out, let me see this, twice in his last – 7 fights, but one of them is against Pitbull, who is one of the best fighters on the planet in Bellator, so I'll give him a pass there. The other one was against Primus, who is decent, but that's from 2017.
Wait, Pitbull and Primus?
Yeah.
The musical acts?
It sounds like it, but no.
Okay.
Different people.
All
but
right.
For the sake of this fight, I think Chandler is aware of the reach disadvantage. I think he knows that Hooker has a lot of power. And I think Chandler will come in with a very smart game plan. And I think he will throw in some wrestling, try to keep Hooker off balance with level changes. I like the over. I think this fight's going to be an absolute war. I think this fight might be the best fight on the entire card in terms of looking at fight of the night bonuses and whatever. I'm sure McGregor or Poirier will win something. That's, of course, the 5-rounder that everyone's paying for. But I think this fight's going to be a war. I think it'll go the distance, especially after Hooker took such a beating from Poirier and from Felder. I know he split those 2 fights, but those were absolutely fantastic fights, and I think this fight will follow a similar script. So for me, I like a very, very bloody over 2.5 rounds at minus 112 on FanDuel.
If you had your choice, would this one go 5 and McGregor go 3?
No, I'd want both of them to be 5.
Okay. All right.
The UFC has been talking about potentially extending co-main event fights in some cards to 5 rounds.
Right.
Non-title fights, which I would be a huge fan of.
Yeah, why not?
Especially if you're charging $90 a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
You can give you an extra 2 rounds for the co-main event.
Is that what this one is? McGregor $89.95?
It's something like that.
Brutal.
It's from 60 to 90. It really varies on the card.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just didn't know if this was going to be one of the upper end.
With McGregor, you got to assume it's the maximum price point.
By the way, that's the McGregor fight. McGregor versus Cowboys last fight I paid for. It was the best 8 seconds of my life.
That was, I believe it was about a minute, if that. So, yeah.
Did he start with a flying leg kick?
No.
Wasn't that
That was the shoulder shrug where he hit him with the shoulder to the face and he busted open
what was
Cowboys.
the one where he started with the flying leg kick?
The flying knee was Masvidal versus Askren, which was like 3 years ago.
Oh, it wasn't that. Since we've been doing this.
Since we've been doing this.
Yeah, since we've been doing UFC, since you and I.
I think McGregor's only fought like one time since, or like twice since we've been doing this.
I swear he started with the flying knee.
McGregor, I don't think he's ever started a fight with a flying knee in his entire career. Okay. So I don't know who the hell you're talking about. Right. But anyway, I like Chandler and Hooker over. I think it'll be a hell of a fight. I think Chandler by decision at plus 250 might be worth a sprinkle, but I'll take the over 2.5.
Okay. All right. So now it's the main event, Scott. Poirier against Conor McGregor. You know, Poirier's nickname is, of course,
Diamond.
The Diamond, yeah. Dustin, by the way, I worked many times with Dustin Diamond from Saved by the Bell. I have nothing good to say about him.
Better than me calling it's better than being called Screech.
I suppose. Yeah. It's a better nickname than Screech. Horrible human being, by the way. Horrible human being. He has cancer now, so I'm not going to belabor that. But and then Conor McGregor is notorious. Mm-hmm. He's the notorious Conor McGregor,
which I feel like it's a pretty perfect nickname for him.
Yeah, I suppose. Poirier is actually the higher ranked fighter here. He's got number 2 contender against the number 4 contender. But as so often happens with these fights, Conor McGregor is a massive favorite, minus 301. Poirier plus 251. Scott, you want to play the over on this? How about plus 150?
You have that at 2.5 rounds?
2.5 rounds, yes, sir.
So I'm going to be playing something a little bit, I'd say, similar to that idea, but a little bit safer. I'm taking a prop bet on Fox Bet, so if you don't have that, then you might be pissed off at me. But I like the over 120.5 total significant strikes between both fighters at minus 118 on Fox Bet. I feel like what people think in this fight is McGregor already ran through him once 6 years ago or so and won by first-round knockout and killed him. And my argument there is that Poirier's been a much better fighter since. Do I think Poirier's going to win the fight? No. I think McGregor's going to win by knockout at some point. But I'm not going to be laying minus 190 by knockout. Like, I can't take that. I don't think there's any value there. But Poirier has been a significantly better fighter than he was back then. He was the interim title holder, just to show you how good he actually was. I think he's going to come in with a brand new game plan. I think he might throw in a little bit more wrestling in there. I really wouldn't be surprised to see this fight go a little bit longer than people think it's going to be. Conor, according to reports, looks as good as he's always looked, which is definitely concerning for an over better or something like that. But if there's one thing about McGregor and Poirier that you should know is that they throw a ton of volume and all of their strikes are significant. So I think if you're looking at over 120.5 significant strikes at minus 118 on Fox Bet for both fighters combined, you're probably going to get there in the second round. I think both fighters will be throwing a lot. McGregor tends to start very quickly. I think he'll probably land at least 30 to 40 significant strikes in the first round, not to mention the fact that Poirier should be throwing pretty heavy punches as well. I would not be surprised to see this fight go into the third round, even potentially longer. Now, would it shock me if McGregor kills him again? No. But I think you'd agree that if you got knocked out by somebody the first time and you have a rematch against the guy later on, I'm assuming you'd probably change up your strategy. I think you'd probably agree with that.
Again, I'm no UFC fighter, but that does seem like a solid strategy that you might not want to go with the thing that did not work at all the first time.
So I think Poirier will throw in some more wrestling, maybe some ground and pound in there. I think McGregor's going to win by knockout eventually because I am a little bit concerned with Poirier's, I'd say, defense. Similarly to Hooker, the reason why Poirier and Hooker's fight was so great last year, it's because they both traded in the pocket and none of them really blocked any punches. So they both took a beating. Poirier ended up lasting longer, and he ended up winning the fight. But I think McGregor will eventually wear him down. I think he'll win the fight. But I do think that this fight might be a little bit longer than people anticipate, and I expect a ton of volume from both guys. So for me, I like the over 120.5 significant strikes.
All right. Yeah, and obviously the only way you're going to get to there is if the fight does stretch out.
For the most part, I think it has to at least stretch out into the start of the third round to get there, which I think is a little bit riskier, but at minus 118. The truth is, unless you're taking Poirier or you take Conor by first or second round win, there's really not much value to be found on Conor because every price is just baked in on the fact that it's McGregor.
Give me Poirier over 2.5, Scott. What does that pay?
So, what are you talking about to win the fight with the over? You're talking about just the over.
Yep. To win the fight over.
I'm trying to. I don't even think you can actually do that.
What?
To parlay the over with Poirier.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure most books don't let you do that.
Why would they not let you do that?
Not really sure, but I know that I've tried that on numerous books, and most books don't let you do it.
So you can play other combinations.
How do you define other combinations?
Well, you can play McGregor in the under, right?
I don't think you can either.
You say, wait a minute. You're saying there's no correlated parlays in just this particular fight?
No, I'm saying in pretty much all MMA fights, some books let you do correlated, some books don't. Most books don't let you do correlated.
Huh. Right.
Most books don't let you do it. You might find occasionally one offshore or something that lets you do it, but if you try to parlay, for example, on BetOnline, Poirier money line with the over, it won't let you do it. And you can try that. At least I'm pretty sure it won't let you do it.
Well, let's see. I can get Poirier inside the distance.
That's not what you wanted.
No, it isn't what I want. But I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
You're getting close. Okay. All right. Well.
So, but the point is, if you try, for example, to set up a 2-pick money line parlay, or a 2-pick parlay, you click Poirier money line in the over. BetOnline's not going to let you parlay him.
No.
And you can test that out. So most books don't let you do that.
Oh, that's what I want.
Well, you can probably call somebody and they'll turn you down.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right.
Well, let me ask: do you think Poirier wins by knockout? Or do you think he just wins by? Like, how do you think he wins the fight?
I think he lets McGregor wear himself out and takes him by submission. I think that's the only chance he has of winning. Now, do I really think that's what's going to happen? No, I think McGregor probably knocks him out, but I thought there might be value. Again, so often happens if you pick one result, you can go ahead and play.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Parlay with that. So
you have options. You have Poirier to win inside the distance, which is available at plus 475 on Fox Bet. You also have double outcomes on Fox Bet, where you can take Poirier to win, for example, by knockout or submission at plus 235.
Well, why wouldn't I just take Poirier at plus 251? Why would I cost myself money and throw away a knockout?
Wait, why would you be throwing away a knockout?
What do you say? Oh, you said why? Throw. I'm sorry.
You'd be throwing away decision.
Yeah. So no,
which doesn't make any sense either.
I have no interest in doing that. You might as well just take Poirier straight up. So I'm just looking. I'm always looking for value, Scott. And
I know you are. I'm saying if you want to go for maybe an exact round, is there a round you think Conor will start to fade?
Obviously. Something over the third, fourth or fifth.
If you're looking at Poirier in the 4th round at 22-1 and the 5th round at 28-1.
Yeah, I'd play either one of those. That's solid. That gets me where I wanted to go. In fact, you could play all three. You could play.
Needless to say, if your bet or your Hail Mary play has a draw, my significant strike play is going to win like 20 minutes before that.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'm getting a hell of a lot bigger price. So
well, like I can also throw in some other props if you want it on Fox Bet. If you want to go for maybe a safer option,
I'll tell you what I like, Scott. Poirier by submission, 3rd, 4th, or 5th round. You have to bet it by the round, but each of those rounds is 40-1.
Okay,
give me that.
Fair enough. I was going to say if you want to take a safer approach or you think that Poirier might not get a knockdown, but he might showcase a little bit more wrestling, you can also take Poirier over half a takedown at minus 154 on Fox Bet.
Okay. I got a little interest in this. And by the way, Scott, this is a good time to mention that I know almost next to nothing about UFC. So.
Well, you asked if you can parlay a favor with a.
You've done that before.
I've done it before because I, let's just say, had a certain book that was letting me get away with stuff that I probably shouldn't have been able to get away with. So I was parlaying favorites with unders and whatever, but that's not exactly kosher.
All right, fair enough. All right, so what's your final outcome on this one, bud?
For me personally, I think McGregor wins by knockout, but I think that Poirier will fight valiantly. I just simply am concerned with his defense because he leaves himself open to punishment a lot. Okay. And I think eventually McGregor with his power. Now, once again, if you think that McGregor's cardio is going to be an issue because he's only fought one time in about 3 years, then you might want to look towards Poirier because you might think that McGregor will fade, which is a fair concern. But if you think that Poirier has no response and you're expecting just deja vu from the first one, then I think McGregor is just going to take his head off. So I think it'll be a hybrid. I think McGregor will win, but I think he'll win in the 3rd round.
All right. Very good. And that's it. That's an entire card. Look at that. We made it through. It's just like the old days, my friend.
Yep. But before we officially say goodbye, I think I'll just recap all 4 just to be played safe here.
Do it.
2-pick parlay here. I got Evloev fight to go the distance and Roundtree money line. That pays out a -109 on FanDuel for that 2-pick. I have Carlos Jr. to win by submission at 4-1 on Fox Bet. I have Hooker Chandler over 2.5 rounds at -112 on FanDuel. And I have McGregor and Poirier over 120.5 combined significant strikes at -118 on Fox Bet.
There you go. And you could do a lot worse than Tail, my friend, right here. Actually, he follows UFC quite closely.
Well, I got my ass kicked on the last card, so we'll see what happens.
Happens. All right. And for the rest of you, if you're looking for more information, you know what? Listen to this video again because we got you're not doing any pieces over there at Winners and Winers for this, are you?
No.
Okay.
And also stay tuned because I believe we have another show that's going to be coming out later on today.
Yep, we're going to be doing our NFL picks later on today. That should be coming out early Saturday morning or late Friday night, depending on when our guy is able to put it up there. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But for this one, that's going to be a wrap on the UFC. It should be a fun card. Make sure you check that out. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you're playing. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Let us know if you want to see more UFC content. And I will kill you. No, I'm kidding. It's I became a bit of a fan, Scott, over the beginning of COVID when there was nothing else on.
It was a war of attrition. And
I had no interest in UFC before that, and I've actually come around to being a bit of a fan where I've actually watched some of the cards. So
you messaged me like, "What's this guy doing?" I'm like, "You're watching a card?"
Yeah, that's right. And I've been profitable a couple of times just by taking some shots. So
you're taking some shots with Poirier, so we'll see what happens.
No question about that. All right, you guys take care. Have a great day. Nothing but the best of luck to everybody. Hope every one of those tickets in your pocket turns into cash money back at the window. For myself, for Scott Reichel, for all of us over here at Winners and Winers, appreciate you watching. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you next time on Today in Sports Betting. Take care, everyone.